So after a long 3-year hiatus, the final season of Stranger Things has finally begun. And all the talk leading into this season was, did the Duffer Brothers take too long? Will the audience even care by the time this season is released? Well, Netflix did crash on release day, so take that for what it's worth. The traffic was so intense that it had dipshits on Twitter asking, why aren't people boycotting Stranger Things? I'm confused. Proof once again that nobody cares about online bullshit in real life. Let's discuss.
I watch so you don't have to.
Before I get started, I'd like to kindly ask that you hit the like button, and please subscribe to the channel for more content just like this.
What are you waiting for, huh? What are you waiting for?
So for those of you who have never heard me talk about Stranger Things before, let me fill you in on my relationship with this series, just to add a little bit of context before I talk about Season 5. Seasons 1 and 2 of Stranger Things were absolute cinema as far as I'm concerned. They just did everything right in those early seasons. Lots of intrigue based on the story they were telling. I actually gave a shit about the characters I was watching, which is always a good thing. And they even managed to pull off nostalgia in a very effective way and not in a gimmicky way like it's used now. I thought that Season 3 was decent, but I did start to see cracks in the armor starting to form. And it did get to a point in that season where it felt like they were trying to do way too much. Trying to balance between too many characters, too many stories, to me is where the series kind of started to unwind. And then as far as Season 4 goes, I had a ton of issues as it pertains to the direction of the story and the use of certain characters. And it all led to me feeling mostly underwhelmed by the totality of Season 4. So if you couple my waning interest in the series in general with the extended break between Seasons 4 and 5, needless to say, I wasn't in a rush to start Season 5.
It's been 84 years.
I'm also not a binge watcher typically, so that was another added wrinkle to how I choose to consume Stranger Things. And at the start of Season 5, actually through the first 3 episodes of Season 5, I have to admit I was struggling to stay invested. It got to the point where I was asking myself, am I watching this purely out of obligation because I've watched it up until this point, or do I actually want to be here? Do I care about these characters based on what's happening to them now? Or is it all based on my past relationship with them? At first, it felt like Season 5 was just kind of going through the motions to me, and once again, spreading itself way too thin. At times, it feels like there's way too many characters, and that has mostly to do with the fact that they seem to be unwilling to kill off anyone of importance. Stranger Things kind of got in the habit of introducing new characters each season that people enjoyed, only to kill them off in the same season, as a way of getting around having to kill anyone off in the main cast. So there is an issue with this show that continues with Season 5, where it feels like the stakes really aren't that high, and none of the main cast ever feels like they are truly in danger. And by the way, I'm not suggesting that they should kill based purely on shock value either. I'm saying that they should do what feels right. There are certain fan favorite characters who do feel like they are kind of just lingering around without much to do from a story perspective. At least until they need more bodies for the next plan to catch a Demogorgon.
That makes sense.
There's a pretty bare bones story at play in Season 5 about the search for Vecna and his plan to take certain children for reasons that had yet to be revealed. And I have to admit, a lot of this felt very predictable to me. You had kids talking to their imaginary friend, which to me was very obviously Vecna, but when they reveal it in the show, it's supposed to feel like a much bigger revelation than it actually ends up being. One of the biggest moments of Season 5 Part 1 involves a Demogorgon coming after Mike's little sister, and his mother basically unsuccessfully trying to fight it off. And a lot of people took issue with this scene because it felt like they were dwarfing the Demogorgon, who we've seen rip through groups of people apart with ease, but somehow a housewife is holding her own with a broken wine bottle. And I understand that criticism. I also understand that she was in protective mom mode, and in the end we have to remember she is nearly killed in the exchange, and this goes back to one of my previous complaints, that being the side characters are always the ones who are placed in the most danger. We also have Max in a coma, which from the very start you can kind of predictably assume her consciousness is trapped somewhere. And when they explain what happened to her and where she is later in the season, I have to admit the explanation did come off a little bit convoluted to me. And at the end of the day, I have to admit I'm just not as big of a fan of the character of Max as some people are, so that could contribute to the kind of ho-hum reaction I'm having to her story. One positive thing I can speak on as it pertains to Season 5 is that they are using the core 4 group of characters, being Mike, Dustin, Lucas, and Will, a lot better than they did in Season 4. A lot of times these characters felt like a bit of an afterthought in Season 4, or even sidelined, Mike specifically. But in Season 5 it does look like they are taking steps to try to rectify that. Mike in particular has played a key role in coming up with and executing certain plans using D&D logic, which is refreshing. Plus, by placing his family in danger, it instantly makes him a focal point once again as well.
Jesus fucking Christ, it's about time!
To me, the highlight of the season so far, as it pertains to character work, is the relationship between Hopper and Eleven. Now, I wouldn't call their arc groundbreaking by any means, but it is effective nonetheless. Just the idea of Hopper still dealing with the drama of losing his daughter, and this leads him to be a bit more overprotective of Eleven than he needs to be. Because he understandably does not want to experience that loss again, and he knows people are after Eleven as we speak. But at the same time, he kinda needs to learn to let go just a little bit, and let Eleven be who she needs to be. It's all about coming to the realization that she's not a kid anymore. And we get a kind of similar storyline between Will and his mother as well. And I do appreciate the fact that we are addressing the older age of these characters and addressing it directly in their story arcs. I feel like if you didn't address it, it would make everything that's going on feel a lot more silly.
I'm too old for this shit.
In Hopper and Eleven's quest to find Vecna and kill him, we quickly realize that the government has not only quarantined and occupied Hawkins, but they've also occupied the Upside Down as well, even building bases inside the dark alternate reality. And this introduces us to Dr. K, played by Linda Hamilton, which continues the Stranger Things tradition of using iconic actors from the 80s and 90s in supporting roles. Dr. K is kind of your generic evil soldier character that we feel like we've seen a million times before. Maybe as more things are revealed, the character will become more nuanced and interesting, but as it stands right now, she did come off as pretty one note to me. So after 3 episodes, I have to admit I was feeling pretty indifferent about this season so far. It had some cool ideas sprinkled throughout, but in the end it just felt like more of the same. And then episode 4 came along, and let's just say, I think they turned things up just a few notches. In fact, I would go as far to say, if not for episode 4, I do not think that part 1 of season 5 did enough to build intrigue for part 2. But in episode 4, we have the character of Will coming through to save the day. During a plan to extract kidnapped children from a military base, the crew is captured and eventually forced to navigate an active war zone as Demogorgons attack the base. And this was easily one of the most cinematically appealing scenes that I've seen in Stranger Things in some time. It felt chaotic, it felt brutal, and they shoot it in such a way where it makes it feel like you as the audience are being dropped right in the middle of it. Longer takes and shaky cam and all, it felt like this was a top tier scene in Stranger Things history.
I like it a lot.
Things got even more crazy when Vecna shows up and goes all Darth Vader and Rogue One on the soldiers. And this leads to the biggest revelation of the first part of season 5, that being that Will, in addition to having some kind of connection to the hive mind, also has powers just like Eleven. And it's revealed in such a cinematic way, Will absolutely has a coming out of the closet moment, no pun intended. We see his friends in peril, we see his mom in peril, and we even get quick flashbacks of him and Mike meeting for the first time. And he has this sort of awakening that leads to him single-handedly killing 3 Demogorgons, 2 of which were not even in his vicinity. Extremely satisfying moment that, in my opinion, saved part 1 and built just a little bit more intrigue for part 2. In the end, Stranger Things Season 5 Part 1 was a mostly uneven experience and was downright underwhelming at times. But it is saved by some pretty massive revelations and some smaller character moments that remind you of why you liked this series to begin with. Will they be able to follow this up with a satisfying conclusion, or will it feel rushed and underdeveloped like the final season of Game of Thrones? I guess we'll have to wait until Christmas to find out.
Y'all be cool. Right on.